The heavy rain has finally eased on Puerto Rico, but cleanup efforts are just beginning after Ernesto slammed the U.S. territory. The storm caused widespread flooding and knocked out power. Nearly two-thirds of the island woke up in the dark this morning. At least 23 hospitals were operating on generators while all schools were shut down yesterday. This hurricane is now headed north to Bermuda. The National Hurricane Center says it shows no signs of weakening and could actually grow stronger by the time it reaches the island this weekend. CBS News correspondent Dave Malkoff joins us now from Hamilton, Bermuda. So, Dave, good to see you and your crew. I see you're there in the rain. Ernesto is shaping up to be the strongest storm his territory would experience in 4 years. What is the area bracing for?
Good morning, Lindsay. This is just starting. This rainfall is kind of part of two different systems. We had one kind of going horizontally over us, and then the other one, the Hurricane Ernesto, actually coming vertically from our south. And this may be, looking at the radar, it may be a mix of the very, very outer bands of Ernesto coming through, but mostly the unassociated storm that's coming through. But what people are getting ready for is putting up all the hurricane shelters and the shutters on their house and making sure that they have extra insurance for their homes. I just talked to an insurance adjuster who runs a facility down here, and she said as late as tonight, she's going to be going out doing late last minute pre-hurricane assessments of people's houses. So say you put a addition on your house in the last couple months, that may not be covered if you don't get it into your policy by the next few hours. And Lindsay, this is really coming down to the wire because the tropical storm force winds will start just as soon as maybe mid-morning tomorrow.
I know, Dave, you are always on the move when you're reporting and bringing these things to us. You're in a different position than we've seen you this morning, but you've been following how people are preparing. What have you been seeing?
Well, there was a restaurant down the street. If you saw us earlier at about 10 a.m., it was a sushi restaurant that's right on Hamilton Bay, and they have an outdoor seating area. It would be a great popular spot, just not today. That outdoor seating area is covered by a kind of tent, so they were pulling that tent down so it doesn't turn into a sail. They were using the aluminum structure to stay in place. But those things can even blow away because, as you know, these hurricanes can spawn mini tornadoes that come off of it, and that could cause those kind of structures to come down. But right now, people are just preparing as much as they can. They all have, and this is something unique to Bermuda, Lindsay, they actually have. Every single house kind of has its own water supply because of the way Hamilton and Bermuda is built. It doesn't have any lakes or rivers on it. So everybody's kind of collecting the rainwater on their roof and storing it in a cistern. And then they either filter it or don't filter it, using it for drinking water or just showering. So they are pretty good with water here as long as we have rain. And we will definitely have rain, possibly 2 feet of storm surge as well. They will be able to collect that water through this. So water will not be an issue, only an issue through flooding on the street and storm surge, which is always the most dangerous part of a storm.
Okay, well, Dave Malkoff, I know you and your crew are only experiencing the beginning. Stay safe.
All right. Now the latest on Hurricane Ernesto, which continues to strengthen in the Atlantic. Puerto Rico is still dealing with the damage from the storm's impact this week. More than 200,000 homes and businesses have no electricity or running water. The hurricane's next target is Bermuda. Forecasters predict powerful winds and torrential rain starting later today. Dave Malkoff is in Bermuda. Dave, good morning. How are people there preparing?
Good morning, Vlad. Time has run out right now for getting prepared for Hurricane Ernesto. Look out here into the North Atlantic. You are looking south. That is basically the exact path that Hurricane Ernesto is coming up. Hurricane warnings are now up. The airport will close later tonight before the worst of the hurricane arrives. We saw long lines there, people trying to get out. We also stopped by one marina where the Commodore was there. He was telling us they had a grueling day trying to move boats out and strongly securing some in the harbor right there. So they'll ride it out with some of those boats. We also caught up with one Bermudian who was getting ready to ride it out, moving all the outdoor furniture inside. You got to do that. You got to put up the storm shutters as well. And he's protecting his house from as much damage as he can. So the last place that this hit was in Puerto Rico, and they are still dealing with the power outages. And a lot of the homes there have not been upgraded structurally since Maria. So they have a lot of structural damage there and potential structural damage from hurricanes that spawn tornadoes coming through. We have a different kind of structural system here in Bermuda where most of the building codes are up to 150 miles an hour. So those will be more protected from some of these buildings here. But again, this is a big tornado. There's a big hurricane that can spawn tornadoes, and no building can sustain that. And we've also got all of the storm surge that can come through. So this is a big day right here.
All right, we'll keep watching it, Dave. Thank you very much.
Let's begin this morning with the conditions in Bermuda, which are expected to deteriorate today as Hurricane Ernesto barrels towards the North Atlantic island. The storm has already left hundreds of thousands of people in Puerto Rico without electricity as crews work to restore power. CBS News national correspondent Dave Malkoff is following the latest on Ernesto out of Bermuda. Dave, good morning.
Hi there, Vlad. The strong surf is only one indicator that Hurricane Ernesto is on its way. Directly to the south is the path that it will take from Puerto Rico coming up here. We will get tropical storm force winds and then hurricane force winds after that through the weekend. Let me just kind of take you around here. We are on the southern portion of the main island in Bermuda. That's several islands, but this is the main one that has the airport that will shut down later today. The cruise ships have already up and gone out of here, and up here at some of the hotels, they are closing up shop. They are putting up the storm shelters, and people are going to the grocery stores, but after just a few hours from now, it's going to be the end of preparation time because those tropical storm force winds will start coming in. We also have a possibility of 2 feet of storm surge, 1 foot of rainwater, and that's going to be throughout maybe the weekend. We don't know how long that will last because it depends on how fast this storm is going to come over us, or if it's going to hover. Over in Puerto Rico, it was going about 16 miles an hour. So it was hovering over them for a while, but as you can see, the plywood is up. And we're hoping for the best, Vlad, here in Bermuda. Back to you.
All right, Dave, thanks very much.
The island of Bermuda is under a hurricane warning as Hurricane Ernesto approaches. The National Hurricane Center says Ernesto is a Category 1 storm with maximum sustained winds of 85 miles an hour. The storm already hit Puerto Rico with torrential rain and flooding. CBS News' Dave Malkoff is tracking things for us.
Greetings from the south side of Bermuda, where it is already starting to rain here. Probably a combination of an unassociated storm, which was coming horizontally at us, and also Ernesto, the very outer bands. It is following, if you think of the if you were to use this as the Bermuda Triangle, and this would be Puerto Rico here, and this is Bermuda, it's basically following this pathway, this over here being Miami. But right now, people are starting to get prepared. We also talked to people who were on a cruise ship, and that cruise ship had to leave early because they don't want to be in the path of all this. Take a look at those cruise passengers earlier today.
This morning they said it was about 600 or 700 miles away, heading this direction. They figured by this afternoon it'll be about 350 miles away. So we were originally going to leave at 5, then 4:30. Now it's 4 o'clock to try and keep ahead of it.
How do you feel about that?
Well, actually, the last time I was in Bermuda, we did the exact same thing. So we maybe should have left a little earlier last time, but this time I have my fingers crossed.
The people who run insurance here in Bermuda are going out and doing last-minute assessments of homes that may have had upgrades in the past few years. If those aren't in your policy, then those will not be covered when Hurricane Ernesto comes through. As we go back to you, we're going to look at the south side of the island. These waves coming in go right towards Ernesto, and we will be here through the duration of the storm. In Bermuda, I'm Dave Malkoff, CBS News.
All right, Dave Malkoff doing it with a selfie stick from Bermuda. Thank you.
A hurricane warning is in effect tonight for Bermuda, with Ernesto barreling across the Atlantic. The Category 1 storm, packing 85-mile-per-hour winds, is forecast to strengthen significantly in the next 24 hours. CBS's David Malkoff is in Bermuda.
Before Hurricane Ernesto slams into Bermuda, a rush of people are trying to get out. Travelers like Michael Vanderbilt from Arlington, Virginia, waited in long lines at the airport after cutting his trip short.
I was here for a week of vacation, and I'm just taking the opportunity to leave a little early so I don't get caught up in the aftermath of the storm.
The waves are already getting quite rough here on the south end of Bermuda, but this sand right here is what's protecting some of these homes and businesses. Just ask Robert Patwood.
40, 50 pounds, because the sand's wet.
And he's running out of time to fill those buckets. Ernesto is on track to pass near or over Bermuda on Saturday and could dump up to a foot of rain. So Bermudians like Richard Evans are boarding up.
You never know until it actually hits, because it can change direction, but you prepare like it's going to hit.
After tearing through parts of the Caribbean, including Puerto Rico on Wednesday, residents are still coping with the damage left behind.
I'm Manuel Bojorquez in Fajardo, Puerto Rico, on the northeast corner of the island, where debris piles like this one from damaged businesses are growing. Also growing, the sense of frustration over the power situation here. By Thursday evening, more than 300,000 customers remained without power, as 1,600 crew members work as quickly as possible to repair the beleaguered power grid. This as some parts of the island, like Añasco on the west coast, remain flooded.
Back in Bermuda, the Commodore at this marina is making sure all the boats are secure. You tried to move everything out.
We do, yeah. We try to get everything out of here just to mitigate the risk.
I was also talking to a local insurance company, and Major, as of just this afternoon, late in the afternoon, they were scrambling around the island and they were updating policies for people who may be underinsured here in Bermuda as the big storm comes this way.
David Malkoff and Manuel Bojorquez, thank you so much.
Forecasters are warning of high rip current risks for all U.S. beaches facing the Atlantic Ocean as Hurricane Ernesto barrels toward Bermuda. Conditions are expected to deteriorate in the North Atlantic in the coming hours. Forecasters predict life-threatening floods and 100-mile-per-hour winds ahead of the storm's arrival in Bermuda. Hurricane Ernesto already left hundreds of thousands of people without power when it slammed parts of the Caribbean earlier this week. CBS News national correspondent Dave Malkoff is in Hamilton, Bermuda, and I want to go ahead and see you're joined by Michael Nestall, the manager of the Marketplace, the local largest grocery store there in Bermuda.
The largest grocery store, yeah. Lindsay, look at this. This is about the size of your normal Publix or your Albertsons or whatever grocery store is in your area. Giant Eagle, maybe, but this becomes the largest grocery store. We are seeing about 100% increase in people who are shopping today because they're loading up on all of the food and the canned goods and the water. Here is Michael. It's a big day for you here.
Yes, it is. Busy day. We'll be up probably 100% over last year because of the hurricane, but we're ready for it. So,
is this a big hurricane for Bermuda?
An average hurricane. Cat 2 is probably average.
And you see a lot of people gathering all the supplies that they'll need, not only for the hurricane, but for the next 2 weeks, possibly, if they lost.
Possibly, but we'll be open for business on Sunday, if possible. If roads are passable, as long as it's safe. But we'll be in good shape.
And when do you close tonight?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. Thank you, Michael.
Right,
Thanks for joining us here on CBS News 24/7. Wow, we've got so many people coming through here getting the Here, Lindsay, I've actually lost my IFB for right now, but we're losing connectivity here, and that's one of the problems that happens during a hurricane and in the moments leading up to it, that, your connection is so important. I've even seen companies, wireless companies, take a drone and put it up into the air that's tethered with a fiber optic cable and also a power cable to make it's a cell site that is a portable cell site that they can just lift off and send a cell signal, because sometimes in Florida you have people who don't have cell service and they actually have to drive an hour outside of town just to tell people they're okay and then drive back, and that's wasting a lot of gas. But this is what we're seeing here at the largest getting ready. Hurricane force winds are coming tomorrow. Tropical force winds will start later today. We are live in Bermuda. I'm Dave Malkoff, CBS News 24/7. Back to you.
Dave, I know you can't hear me, but thank you. Hurricane Ernesto is barreling towards Bermuda after pummeling Puerto Rico and the Virgin Islands. The Category 2 storm is expected to fully reach Bermuda early Saturday. Forecasters are predicting wind speeds of up to 100 miles an hour and potentially deadly amounts of rainfall and flooding. CBS News national correspondent Dave Malkoff is in Bermuda with the latest. Dave, what are you seeing?
Lindsay, this is a very different scene than we saw just hours ago when we were at the grocery store. Look at the storm right behind us. We've got tropical storm force winds coming up. Those waves are swelling to huge heights that we have not seen before. The beach is obliterated. It's not there anymore. And this was surprising to the highest levels of government here in Bermuda. We talked to the National Security Minister, who told us that this is going to be a closer approach to the nation of Bermuda, or the islands of Bermuda, and it's also going to be a stronger storm than they thought just 24 hours ago. So they're asking people to get ready for one of the strongest storms that they've seen in a very, very long time. There were people who were getting their last-minute meds from the pharmacy. We stopped by the grocery store, which was packed with double the amount of people who would normally be there on a Friday night. We also went to the hardware store where they were selling all sorts of batteries, and they were selling generators, all this kind of stuff that you would need at the last minute for I was just losing our connection. That's another thing that we're losing every once in a while, is we're having connection problems. But that's just not for us. That's for the entire island. They are getting ready for this, but some people are going to have to ride this out on their boats. We talked to one captain who was on a boat called the Pescador that is out there in the harbor, and it is on hurricane moorings. But since he lost an engine, he's going to have to ride this out on the water in that fishing boat. I think it's an 80-foot fishing boat that he's on, but that's definitely not where you're going to want to be, because this is a very, very powerful storm. We could possibly see the eye wall, which is now defined on the 200-kilometer radar, which is about 125 miles out. We can see that defined eye wall from the local radar right here. And it looks very menacing for the people who are hurricane hardy here in Bermuda. We'll send it back to you.
Okay, Dave Malkoff, hope everybody stays safe there, including you. Thank you.
Frenzied preparations in Bermuda tonight as Hurricane Ernesto gains strength. The Category 2 storm with 100-mile-per-hour winds is expected to produce dangerous storm surge and make landfall early tomorrow. CBS's Dave Malkoff joins us from Bermuda this evening. Dave, good evening.
Good evening, Major. Not only can we hear and feel and see Ernesto looking back there over the ocean, but there's also a Doppler radar site at the airport here in Bermuda looking at 155 miles. We can now see the eye through that. It is menacing, it is well-defined, and it's headed this way. Ernesto's fierce winds and churning waves are signs Bermuda is in for a bashing. Here's Minister of National Security, Michael Weeks. I know Bermudians are hurricane hardy, but this is a big storm, and it looks like it's coming directly here.
This storm is probably going to be right on top of us, closer than storms have in the past.
The worst will hit Saturday morning with 90-mile-an-hour winds and up to 9 inches of rain. With just hours before landfall, the largest grocery store was packed for a weather wipeout.
The best thing to do is obviously get your supplies beforehand.
Lorenzo Cook says in any hurricane, the best resource is often Bermudians themselves.
Obviously, a neighbor is a helping hand at all times.
Outside the hardware store, it's pouring, while inside, generators, flashlights, and coolers are being snapped off the shelves.
Watching the weather come in here, trying to get everything done.
As the storm creeps closer, Captain Jeremy Fowler secured the Pescador, an 80-foot sport fishing boat in a protected area of the harbor because he lost an engine. But he's riding out the storm with his friend Brian Alford.
Feeling pretty confident, but still optimistic and paying attention to what's going on. It's blowing the tops off the waves in the harbor here. I see some of the seawalls are starting to get pretty deep.
Wow, that is not the place you want to be. Our hearts go out to the crew of the Pescador. It is already bad. It's just going to get worse. And Major, this storm may have the same name as the storm that came through Puerto Rico, but it has a different personality now. It is much stronger.
Ferocious indeed. Dave Malkoff, thank you.
Oh my God! The effects of Hurricane Ernesto already being felt in the United States. Swells from the powerful storm washed this house in the Outer Banks of North Carolina into the ocean, and dangerous rip currents are likely today along the beaches of New York and New Jersey. Ernesto is currently a Category 1 hurricane with winds of 85 miles per hour. It was a tropical storm when it skirted Puerto Rico earlier this week, but still took its toll, knocking out power to about half of the island's 1.5 million energy customers. This morning, Ernesto is bearing down on Bermuda, which began seeing tropical storm force winds and dangerous flooding on Friday. Dave Malkoff is in Bermuda, where understandably the signal has been shaky. Dave, we're going to give this a shot. Hopefully it stays with us, and you do as well. Good morning.
Yeah, we'll try to walk you through this, Dana. This is an unusual situation where we can actually bring you in to the eye of the hurricane. This is Ernesto's eye. This is some damage that was left behind. A wild night last night as it was coming in the overnight hours, making landfall just around 5 a.m. local time as a Category 1. The reason why we are out in the eye is because the southern portion of the eye wall has kind of broken up at this point. There was the hurricane hunters. They were up last night in the C-130s, and they were seeing that a little bit of dry air was getting into the hurricane, and that broke up the southern portion of the eye wall. But looking on the 250-kilometer radar, we can actually see that the portion is coming around. So we may have to get inside in a little bit. As you know, that eye wall is very intense, the most intense part of the storm. We also talked to Jeremy Fowler, who is the captain of the Pescador this morning, and he rode it out on his 80-foot fishing boat. He was in the galley area, rocking and rolling through this, and they actually made it through this hurricane because they were on what's called hurricane moorings. That's taking big cruise ship anchors and putting them underground and chaining the boat to that. They lost an engine, they couldn't move through, so that's how they made it through this hurricane. But right now, minimal damage in the southern portion of Bermuda, but we will get out and see what it's like. The Minister of National Security was telling people, please don't get out and drive in this because it could get bad at any time. Back to you.
Stay safe out there, Dave Malkoff. Thank you.
Good evening. We begin tonight with Hurricane Ernesto. It plowed past Bermuda today as a Category 1 storm, unleashing a torrent of rain and powerful winds. Tonight, the eye of the storm is hundreds of miles off the U.S. coast, but still bringing danger this weekend to East Coast beaches. Riptide and high surf alerts are posted from Florida to Maine. Millions warned to stay out of the water. CBS's Dave Malkoff is in Paget, Paris, Bermuda, and leads us off tonight. Dave, good evening.
Good evening, Adriana. Wow, what a wild night we had as this hurricane made direct landfall on the island. It was really hard for us to sleep through it, but our night was nothing compared to the night of these fishermen in the worst part of the storm. The crew of the Pescador lost an engine but saved themselves, chaining their boat to a pair of cruise ship anchors in the harbor, all during Hurricane Ernesto's worst winds.
100-mile-an-hour gusts, I'm guessing. Still holding strong.
The storm knocked out power to 70% of Bermuda and stripped trees of their branches, but many vacationers had already left the tiny and wealthy island. And if you look at that piece of coral down there, you can see how those 30-foot waves are just crashing on that. There used to be a beach here. When Ernesto skirted Puerto Rico earlier this week, it was a tropical storm that knocked out power to about 700,000 customers.
Oh my God!
Even hundreds of miles offshore, Ernesto's danger came to the U.S. East Coast. Powerful surf pulled this house into the Atlantic on North Carolina's Outer Banks. From Florida to Maine, the National Weather Service has issued rip current alerts to over 1 million people. Nearly 10 million people are under a high surf advisory. And in New York City, beachgoers are not allowed to get into the water, but many still showed up.
They closed the water, but we can sit on the beach.
The head of the Bermudian government had to actually go on emergency radio to scold people who were out there, Adriana, swimming in the eye of the storm, ignoring the danger in all of that. These things are crank powered, but we are told that crews are out there trying to put the lights back on for people all over Bermuda.
Swimming in the eye of the storm, unbelievable. Dave Malkoff, thank you.